composition project. This is a walkthrough of the kind of the rules of the composition, how you're going to do it in flat. So I suggest that you watch this in order to know and see the steps kind of play out. The beauty about this is that you can actually rewind, you can press stop, go back, you can watch this a couple times, just watch a specific section as you need to review. Just a quick reminder that if you've chosen to record a cover song for your final performance and you recorded like the karaoke and you singing over top, you're going to do these pink slides, you're going to do the composition. But if you decide to do another option like play a cover song but you've recorded 4 tracks in total, or you've recorded your own song, then you skip this composition and you don't need to watch this video. You got a set of instructions here. Let's first read through them and then we will go and kind of play it out in flat. So number 1 says you're going to use the flat template that's found in Google Classroom. So of course in Google Classroom there'll be a post there. You can click on that and that'll take you into flat so you can begin your file. Number 2 is you modify that template that I give you as you need. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that once we get to flat. But let's read through the rules of the composition. So the following items, number 3, should be included. A. You will use any combination of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 chords of your chosen key. So you will pick a key, D major, F major, E flat, C sharp, C major, whatever you want. And you would probably work out all the chords in that key so that you have that as a little bit of a legend. Then it says in that 3A, it says for best success, try a pattern of chords that repeats. So don't just randomly pick chords. Oh, I'll go 1, 3, 2, 3, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 6, 5, 4, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1. That's a little bit too random because songs usually have repetition in them, especially pop songs. And so you're going to find maybe a pattern of 4 chords and repeat that and maybe have just one section that changes up a bit. But if you repeat a pattern of 4 chords, 1, 4, 2, 5, for example, then it creates a pattern that our ear can best make sense of. So 3B, it says the first and last bar of the composition will be the 1 chord. So if you're in C major, the 1 is C, and therefore your first chord would be a C and your last chord would be a C. And why is that? Because the 1 chord is what gives us that sense of home in any key signature. So when you start with the 1 chord, the ear says, okay, this is like the center, the home sound. And when you end there, our ear expects to hear the ending to be there, and therefore it gives us that sense of arrival. Okay, so you're gonna choose a 1 chord as your first bar and your last bar. 3C, you will include 3 different instruments in your composition. So 1 instrument will have the melody, and the other 2 instruments will play chord notes. So what does that mean? So 1 instrument might be, let's see, a violin, and so that will be your melody note. Okay, but then the other 2 instruments, like a piano and a bass, those will play chord notes. Meaning, if it's a C chord that you're playing in that bar, then your piano will have the notes of that chord, and so will the bass play one of those notes. Now the melody notes, I'm reading 3D now, the melody notes can be any notes from the scale of your key. So if in C major, you can use the C major scale, and you can use any notes of that for your melody. However, it says the majority of the notes in your melody in a bar should be from the chord below it. So if you have a C chord as a part of the bar, then make sure your melody mostly plays notes from that chord, even though you might have other ones. But if you'll have more success if you kind of stick to the chords, and then use a variety of rhythm patterns for your notes. So don't just stick whole notes everywhere. We want to have something a little bit more interesting. So we're going to go back to this slide as we need to, but we're going to set up this file. So if I was in Google Classroom, I'd click on the template and it's going to take you to this, where it's just a piano. So you're going to modify it. Remember, number 2 said modify the template as you need. And we know we need 3 instruments, so let's choose those right now. So maybe we're going to keep this piano, and now we need something else. We are going to find our instrument tab, and the thing is that I don't always use flat, or it's new to me, so sometimes I have to feel my way around it. So on the top left here, there's this little piano keyboard, and I'm going to go manage instruments. So you can see I have my piano, but I'm going to add an instrument, and let's do the strings, the violin. Actually, I'm going to remove that for a second, and I'm going to say add an instrument, strings, violin, high quality. Yes, because we want high quality. And then we're going to add another instrument, and I said bass, so let's see if we can find that. Let's see. I'm sorry, but I'm not finding. Oh, there it's in pluck strings, of course. Electric bass. Let's use just this one here. Great. So when I'm happy with that, actually, I just want the melody to be on the top staff there, just so I know I can see that really clearly. So I've just slid the violin up. I say done. So here we are. And we don't have to worry that there's only 1 bar, because we can push that further along as we need to. One rule that I don't think I read here was that your composition is going to be 20 to 24 measures long. So I'm going to put that in here for when you are, let's write that in right now. So modify the template. It will be 20 to 24 measures in length at the end. Great. So we are going to choose different chords and so on, and therefore I'm going to put on the screen my chords. I'm going to choose D major, and therefore I need to change this key signature because I want the sharps to show up here. So the way I can do that is go to measure and find the key signature, which looks like all these sharps here, and I'm going to find D major. Well, you should have your key signature chart or Google one up and so on, but D major has 2 sharps, F and C sharp. So now I've changed it. All the instruments reflect that. Okay, so I said I can use any combination of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 chords. My first chord has to be a a 1 chord, so we know it has to be D, F sharp, and A. So in my violin instrument, it's going to be the melody. So the other one can share, like these different other instruments can share all of the chord notes. So it doesn't really matter. I can repeat chord notes. So I've chose a D and an A there, and let's put the whole that's the whole chord, D, F sharp, A. But here in the bass clef of the piano, put a D, and then the bass guitar will play a D. And the bass guitar is going to play kind of like this repeated note pattern. So that's going to be our bass for now. And this piano, I can go back to the notes tab up here on the top, and I can change this piano to be whole notes or half notes. And therefore, oops. If I say D and then hold the shift key down, again, I'm still learning flat myself, so I ended up just clicking them in, and then boom. So now there they are, and let's see if we can put the volume down just a bit. So I've got these chords. I've used 1 note from the chord here in the bass, and it's good to use the note that's the bottom of the chord, like D, because that'll solidify that chord. The piano's using the chords there, and then the melody's going to play different notes here. So I'm going to start maybe on the second beat with an A, and we said use a variety of rhythms. So how about A with, oops, make sure I select that, go to eighth notes. Let's see what that sounds like. Make sure you go back to the beginning. Ah, so far so good. We've got our piano here playing chords. We've got the bass doing this repeated pattern. The melody is starting to go, and now we're going to change the chord here. So we had the one chord here. Let's go to a I didn't plan this out in advance, but I'm going to go to a 2 chord here. So a 2 chord, going back to my legend of chords, is an E minor. E, G, B are the names of the notes. So our bass clef note in the piano, we'll do that a whole tone again. Let's write out the whole chord here. Select that, go to half notes. Let's do a similar pattern. So you notice that my piano is looking the same, not in terms of notes, but in terms of way it's playing, right? So I have a whole note in the bass clef. I have half notes here repeating the chords twice per bar. And my bass, he's gonna keep on playing that same type of pattern of 1 note per beat. And my melody is the one that's going to vary in rhythm. So now E, G, B, and I said I want to use the majority of those chord notes in the melody, like E, G, B, but I can sway from that as I want to. So G, G, A. Let's go and, whoops, choose an 8th note. Just, I chose like a G, G, A, B, B, E. Again, so this note here is not part of that chord, but the majority of my notes are. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the beginning and hit play. Ah, so beautiful already. Now, I said to choose 4 chords and repeat those, right? So I have a 1 chord, 2. Now I'm going to go to a 6 chord. So in D major, that's a B, D, and F sharp. So my bass clef in the piano is going to be a whole note, B. I'm going to write out the whole chord here. Oops. Undo that. I'm going to select that, make it a half note, and do the same thing, right? So I'm keeping that consistency of pattern. That's important. We don't want everything to change from bar to bar, or at least not at the level that we're composing here. The bass player is going to play a B. Okay, great. Notice it always adds a bar when you finish one. The bass player has repeated this BBB pattern, and now the melody is going to be majority of those notes from the chord, but I can add other ones. So hit a D here, and I might sometimes want to choose to use some of the rhythms I've already used. So I'm going to use the same rhythm as I have in this second bar, but just different notes. So sorry, I'm just drawing a blank here. All right, so if you were to analyze this, the second bar is an eighth, then a quarter, eighth, 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 quarter. And I have that same thing here. Eighth, quarter, eighth, 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 quarter. And now I've just changed the notes, but it's the same rhythm. So if I go back and click the beginning and press play, Now you can hear that kind of consistent bass player, the consistent piano player, and the melody note. So you heard the consistent pattern of the bass and the piano playing different rhythms, or the same type of rhythms, just different chords. The violin is using similar rhythms, maybe in a bar, but different notes, and that's what creates the interest here. So you can see that this is starting to piece together to be a nice composition. It might not be something that you're gonna write home about or buy, but you have to start somewhere. And so I would find my fourth chord. So I had a 1, 2, a 6, and then we're going to end with a 4 chord. So I'm going to start with the 4 chord on a G. That's G, B, and D. So my bass clef note is going to be, there, and then I'm going to put the chord in and use the same rhythm I've been using all along. And then maybe I'm going to go back to that first rhythm of melody here. So I'm going to start on the second beat. And now that I've written that rhythm in that melody, I have a similar melody and so on, a similar rhythm in the melody, and using the same chord pattern. Let's write in the bass notes here. If I didn't write that in. And I'm going to go back to the beginning, to the first beat, and press play. Great. So that's my four bar pattern. So I would repeat probably the same chords. I could repeat them, let's see, if it's 4 bars, I can repeat them 5 times and get 20 bars out of that. And I can use similar melody, but maybe just changing a little bit so that it creates some interest. So you think about a pop song, like the melody often repeats and they just change the words and so on, but then sometimes the melody will go up instead of down when it's going towards the chorus and so on. So you can switch that around a little bit and create some interest that way. But I'm not going to create the whole composition in front of you, but this is the whole idea, right? So you go back to this slide and you look at your rules. Are you following all the rules? Yes, you are. And boom. And you should have success. Let me know how I can help you, and looking forward to seeing these if this is what you chose to do.